Hello everybody. I started my research for today's episode by looking into this depiction of a Central Otago lake to see what story, if any, it might have to tell. The painting's signed by M.B. Rainbird. It's dated 1889 and it was donated to the museum more than a century later by relatives of the artist. So who was M.B. Rainbird? Well, she, Mary Barr Rainbird, was a daughter of Otago Peninsula farmers Robert and Mary Rainbird. Robert was from Suffolk in England, where the Rainbirds were well-known agriculturalists. He and Mary Weir Allen, eldest daughter of William Allen from Scotland, married in Dunedin in 1866. They farmed a property between Company Bay and Grassy Point, where the family's connection is still acknowledged today. Robert and Mary's first child was a son, who they named Robert. Second child, Mary Barr, was born in 1868, and 5 more children would follow, although third daughter, Layla Parry, didn't survive infancy. Layla passed away in 1874, a couple of months short of her second birthday, and was the first Rainbird interred in the family's burial plot in McAndrew Bay. Mary Weir Rainbird had a brother, William Barr Allen, who, as a young man, had moved from the Otago Peninsula to settle at Pembroke on the shores of Lake Wanaka. According to an obituary published upon his death in 1924, William Allen spent his first few years here engaged in bush felling on Mo Waho, or Pigeon Island, and rafting timber across rivers and lakes in the district. Later, in partnership with Sydney butcher William Sylvester, he built a cutter named Surprise for trading on Lake Wanaka, and followed that up by building the commercial hotel at Pembroke. The hotel, which opened in 1886, was built using timber he procured from Makarora, boated across the lake, and ran, along with stones for the chimneys, up to the hotel site via a temporary tramway. A few years later, Mary Barr Rainbird, then about 21 years of age, paid her uncle William Barr Allen a visit at Pembroke and painted the work that sparked this episode of Talking Pictures. For the next poignant moment in the life of Mary Barr Rainbird, we're heading back to Otago Harbour for a regatta at Broad Bay on New Year's Day in 1894. When Mary's sister Edna Peck Rainbird took first prize in the ladies' sailing race in a boat named Thistle. A couple of days later, Edna was gone, having suddenly passed away at the family home at Rainbird's Bay on January 4. The funeral procession to the family plot in McAndrew Bay to bury the remains of the 22-year-old, well-known and well-regarded music teacher and church organist was said to have been one of the longest ever seen in the district. The Grim Reaper would come knocking on the Rainbird's door several more times in the 1890s. Mary's elder brother Robert, who had moved to Australia, passed away at Kalgoorlie in 1897, aged 30, after contracting typhoid. He was buried at Kalgoorlie, but is memorialised on the family monument at McAndrew Bay. Then on a Thursday afternoon in March 1898, experienced sailor James Wilson and 5 companions, one of whom was 15-year-old Harry Rainbird, set off from the boat sheds in Dunedin onto the upper harbour in a 16-foot sailboat. After rowing into a headwind as far as the first red beacon, the lads anchored and engaged in a spot of fishing. At about 4:30, with the breeze beginning to freshen, they set sail for home. As they tracked back up the harbour, a sudden squall off Waverley caused the boat to capsize. A rescue operation was swiftly mounted as the occupants clung to the drifting oars and the hull of the overturned boat. 4 survived the ordeal and 2 were lost. The following day, police dragged the harbour in a search for the bodies of the deceased. An 8-year-old Albert Farron's body was recovered mid-afternoon. Harry Rainbird's body was finally discovered on Saturday afternoon and was subsequently laid to rest alongside his sisters. Two other sisters, Mary Barr and Medea Easley, and one brother, William, remained. The sisters married in the late 1890s, Medea to William Bacon of Broad Bay, and Mary to Robert Burns, grandson of Reverend Dr. Thomas Burns, and eldest son of politician and Mosgiel Woolen Company founder Arthur Burns and his wife Sarah. In the early 1880s, Arthur Burns had become manager of the Westport Coal Company, and Robert had become an engineer on Westport Coal Company vessels. But he later joined the Union Steamship Company, serving as second engineer on the Tave Uni in the South Pacific, then on the intercolonial steamer Wakatipu, and as chief engineer on the Pukaki, before transferring to the Ohau in 1899, some months after he'd married Mary. On the 12th of May 1899, about 3 months after Robert joined the Ohau, the strongly built vessel left Greymouth with a cargo of coal and timber and headed for Dunedin. Captain Brewer had intended on sailing south via Foveaux Strait, and then changed his mind and proceeded to take the northern route through Cook Strait. The following day, the Ohau was seen off the coast of Wellington by several other vessels and by lighthouse keepers at Cape Campbell, as it struggled against a furious southwesterly gale and heavy seas. The Ohau was never seen again, and on the 25th of May, the Union Steamship Company issued a statement to its branch managers declaring the Ohau and her 22 crew had been lost at sea. Robert's passing was subsequently marked on both the Burns family plot in Dunedin's Southern Cemetery and the Rainbird family memorial at McAndrew Bay. Mary later married Robert's younger brother Thomas, who'd become a medical doctor specialising in psychiatric medicine and had been the first New Zealand doctor to serve in the South African War. During the First World War, Thomas again served and was stationed in Samoa as senior medical officer. Thomas and Mary eventually retired to live at North East Harbour. They died in 1932 and 1938 respectively, and were buried in the Burns family plot in Dunedin Southern Cemetery. That's it for this episode. See you next time, and thanks for watching.